So good morning everybody, and welcome to a bright, not quite sunny day. Sunday it is, Sunday morning, in Upper Austria, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the bike. I don't normally do bike reviews. There are a lot of people out there doing bike reviews, and I don't really want to compete with them. I'm not interested in telling you all the specs on the bike and all that sort of stuff, because you can easily find that out elsewhere. But this is more of an owner's impression after doing 18 months on the bike from new. So I've basically been riding mainly in the Austrian Alps, 3 tours over in the Dolomites, the Italian Dolomites, another one coming up soon, and then down to Slovenia, up to Croatia, across to Germany, and so on. So I've done about 15,000 kilometers on the bike so far. And just by way of comparison, during the same time period, I've also ridden Honda CB500X in Canary Islands, a Honda NC700 in the Canary Islands, Suzuki V-Strom 650 in Tenerife, that was an older model, and a brand new Suzuki V-Strom 650 across the Eastern Sierras in California. Videos from that will be coming soon. When I get around to doing the post-production, there's probably going to be about 4 videos one after the other on that tour. That was really quite interesting. Anyway, so yeah, I've got also BMW 1200 GS. They were new at the time, down in Spain. Did 4 or 5 days touring around the mountains above Malaga. Very nice too. So, some of my comments are going to be a little bit kind of oriented towards my requirements for the bike, which I guess is natural. I make videos. I don't normally do review videos, as I've said. If you want to see the videos I do, they're touring based, and I do a series called Great Motorcycle Roads, with little videos basically dedicated to the particular road sections around the world. Right, back to the bike. Okay, first thing. Smoothness of the engine. Because it's a triple engine, it's very smooth, and in comparison to all the other bikes I've ridden, which have been 2-cylinder engines, admittedly I haven't tried the Yamaha 3-cylinder engines. They may have a similar smoothness feel to this one, but there's no comparison between this and any of those other 2-cylinder bikes, and for me as a photographer, that translates into something quite important, because I strap cameras all over the bike, and if I get too much vibration, none of the cameras can actually handle that, especially low frequency vibration, which is closer to a kind of a wobble, if you like. For instance, I have a camera on the front shooting now. I'll switch to that one now, this one, and you'll see how smooth that is. Doesn't need any stabilization or anything. It's strapped to the front of the bike, it's on a GoPro mount on the front of the bike, down low, on the bottom of the screen actually. Let me just close this, might get better sound. And I get no vibration problems at all. I get super smooth video from that. Now, I've tried that on loads of all the other bikes I've rented around the world, and I've never been able to get consistent smooth results. So I might get 5 or 10 seconds of good footage, and then it starts wobbling and vibrating, and you get rolling shutter jello wobble and all that sort of stuff. So that's not good. So this is better from that point of view. And you'll notice I've got this camera stuck on the top of the screen here. This is an Insta361, amazing little device, and it's just stuck to the top of the screen here. And again, partially I think because of the vibration characteristics of the bike, but also combined with the design of the screen, which is quite rigid, I don't get any wobble problems on that either. As you can see if you watch my videos or watch this one now, I'll just cut back to that now. Yeah, while we're on the subject of the screen, it's by far the best stock screen in terms of wind protection of any bike that I've tried. Yeah, that's all I can say really. Most of the other ones I tried, you'd want to change and get an aftermarket screen, but not the Triumph. It's spot on in that regard. But I am quite short. If I stand up on the bike, obviously if I lift my head up a bit over the top of the screen, I can feel the wind blast. So it's basically blowing it straight over the top of my head. I'm about, I don't know, I don't measure myself, 5'7", 5'8" or something. I'll put I'll put the actual measurement on screen because I don't know how tall I am. So what have we done? We've done the vibration, we've done the screen. Now when you come to the weight of the bike, a lot of people get hung up on the weight of motorbikes. And I think that's a mistake. I mean, the weight is important, but not in actual fact the total kind of weight as if you want to lift it up with scales, lift it up off the floor, because you never do that. So it's really, what's more important is how the weight affects the handling of the bike, which is why it's the distribution of the weight that's more important than the actual weight. And I've for a long time thought that all the bike reviews and even the bike manufacturers and stuff in their specs should post a figure, which I personally like to call the HTA, the holdable tilt angle. So what I do is I sit on the bike with my feet on the floor, put a spirit level on the tank flat, and see how far over I can tip that bike. This is like simulating what would happen in a car park if you slip your foot on gravel or something. How far over I can tip that bike before it gets to the point that I can't pick it back up again, before it's gone past the point of no return, if you like. I could easily quantify that into a standard figure, an angle per so many, kilograms of sideways force or something, whatever. But if you do that, the interesting thing is, this is where the total weight of the bike is really quite irrelevant. If you look at a GS with the boxer engine, everybody knows they're very stable, and the reason they're very stable is because the weight's down low, and you can tilt those over a lot further than any other bike with a comparable weight. So if you compare the Tiger 1200, which is really rather heavy, I think it's slightly heavier than the GS, it's worse than just being heavier, it's not as tiltable because the weight is much higher. That's one of the reasons I wasn't interested in getting the 1200 version of this bike, because to be honest, the 800 for me, I mean, I'm not a racer, the 800 for me is perfect. It's more power than I'm ever going to need. And it tours, and I load it up with kit and everything, and there's no problem. So yeah, from the weight point of view then, I would say the weight on this is higher than on some other bikes. My wife's Honda NC750X, which obviously is a very low powered bike, but still it's quite heavy, and the tilt angle on that is larger than this. You can tilt that over further without feeling you're going to drop it. I'm talking about static now. Obviously when you're riding it's irrelevant. I'm talking about static, moving it around in the car park, paddling it around, that sort of thing. Yeah, so that's my take on that. But on this one, although this is higher, it's nowhere near as heavy as the big Triumph, the 1200, so it's perfectly manageable. I've never had any problem with it. And as I say, I'm a short guy. Comfort-wise, yeah, it's easily, well, actually, to be honest, the best seat, I think, and the best comfort on long distance riding that I've had so far was the BMW GS 1200, and I guess the new 1250 will be the same. So they're getting that very, very good. This and the brand new V-Strom 650 we rode in California, probably very similar in terms of how far you can go before your bum starts aching. I have been experimenting with one of those Airwolf seats, air cushion seats, and I'm starting to think it might be the best kind of modus operandi on one of those might be to have it unmounted, do the ride for a certain amount of time without it, and then when your bum starts to ache, just stop, mount the seat, and you've got completely different kind of seating characteristics and pressure points, and you could probably ride the same distance again before your bum starts aching. But I haven't actually put that into practice yet. That's just a theory. Power-wise, as I say, the bike for me is more than enough. I'm just a kind of cruisy mountain rider. I like I go a lot faster off main roads than I do on, to be honest. I like going up the twisties in the Dolomites and around the hairpins and all that sort of thing. And if you watch my videos, you'll see that. But I'm not one of these guys that gets my elbow on the floor or my knee or anything else, to be honest. Occasionally the foot pegs, that's all. So from if you're riding like that, like I am, it's great. Okay, what can I say else? Cleaning the bike it's a bit of a bugger cleaning it in comparison to other bikes, because there's quite a lot of scaffolding on it, especially when you've added in crash bars like I have. There's a lot of nooks and crannies for dirt to get into that are quite difficult for you to kind of access with your hands and get clean. So lately I've started using snow foam. Yeah, snow foam seems to be so far a very good solution. You leave it on for a couple of minutes, and I just quickly go around afterwards while it's kind of once all the bubbles have gone and it's kind of all soapy, and just with my finger lightly move any insects to make sure they're not still adhering to anything, and then just hose it all down gently, and then I dry it off with a bike dryer. It doesn't take long, and it gets into all those bits that you can't get into, you know, with more conventional methods. So so far I like it. I don't know whether it's going to cause me any, you know, residue or corrosion problems or anything, but I guess a lot of people have been using them for a long time, and I've not heard too much bad about that, apart from maybe polished aluminium. Anyway, back to the bike. Heated seats, heated grips, both of which I, you know, was dubious as to whether I would use, but both of which I definitely have used, and they're very nice, thank you. It's even got independent heated seat for the front and back passenger. This, by the way, is the 800 XRT, which is the top of the range road-oriented version of the bike, rather than the XC, XCA, or whatever the other ones are called, the cross-country ones, the off-road ones that have the wire-spoked wheels, and I don't know whether the suspension, I guess the suspension's set up different. Minor changes like that to make it more suitable for off-road. I only go off-road when there's no road left to get to some interesting places, but I don't make a habit of doing whole tours off-road. So this bike works perfectly for me in that regard. What else can I say? Oh yes, visibility. I mean, one of the, as we all know, one of the most dangerous things riding a motorbike is cars, and it's cars that are waiting in junctions to come out from the side when you're coming along, or even cars that are facing you head on and they're going to turn across you. Doing that at the last second, and bang, there's nothing you can do. So the only thing you can do is increase your visibility. This bike, the XRT, comes as stock with the normal headlights, obviously, and then two spotlights on the side, and they are exactly what they say. They're spotlights, which means you can't see them from many angles. They're really more designed to light up the road ahead at night, and as I don't do much night riding, that's of very little interest to me. So I've actually swapped those out and replaced them with daytime running lights, which the main difference is they're not spotlights, so they're wide angle, but you can see them from a multitude of angles. So my visibility when I'm coming forward towards somebody is much higher. So I think that increases or decreases the chances of a Smidsy. Sorry mate, I didn't see you. What else can I say? The switches are very nice, the switches, but they're not got that positive kind of click feel that you get on some switches. They're more the modern PCB connector type switches, so they're kind of, if I do that, I don't get a click. That's the indicators. I mean, it works very nicely, and I know it's not like I ever feel I haven't put them on, but a nice click can be sometimes nicer. And one of those other bikes I rode, I think it might have been the Suzuki, definitely had more of a click feel, more of a haptic feedback on the switches. You can tell I'm a newbie at doing these bike reviews, because I'm struggling at the moment to think of what else I've missed that might be of interest. Okay, well, would I buy the bike again? Am I happy with it? I'm extremely happy with it. Definitely, in terms of buying it again, I wouldn't at the moment because it's perfect as it is, but do I want to change it for anything else? No. Because of my particular requirements as a photographer, I don't think I can really change it for anything other than a triple anyway, so I would have to go for a Yamaha Tracer, an MT-09 or something like that. And I'm going to test one of those out in New Zealand later this year. So I'll see how I feel about that. But I think from reading reviews and so on, it's a less spec bike in some regards. It doesn't have quite the luxurious feel of the Tiger. so I think it might be a step down, to be honest. In terms of going up, I could go up to the Tiger, the big Tiger, 1200 with the shaft drive and everything, which in some ways would be nice, but as I said earlier, it's just too damn heavy, and I think I would drop it quite easily in the car park if my foot slipped. And we don't want that. Plus, I mean, what does it give me that I don't get on this? Nothing really. I mean, this cruises fantastically. It's no, I think it's, for me, it's the perfect bike. Negative points. Okay, some of the negative points. I don't have many negative points actually, but I guess one, which is common to virtually all motorbikes. I would just really like it if they added an accessory bar for you to mount things like your mobile phone. I've got my mobile phone mounted here, but I've got this stainless steel bar clamped across here that I basically got custom made. Okay, lovely. I basically got that custom made. Otherwise, you just can't do it, you know. And I think really it would be good if more bikes, especially kind of adventure style bikes, had a standard kind of accessory bar that they mount somewhere in a suitable position, to which you could clamp all sorts of other devices, rather than you having to make something yourself. But that's not a negative for this bike, that's just a negative generally for bike manufacturers. What else can I say that's not good? Well, obviously it hasn't got a shaft drive, so you've got chain maintenance. But I fitted one of those electronic Scott oilers to get around that problem. Senses whether the bike's moving or not, so it doesn't drip when it's stationary, and it does a pretty damn good job. So most of the time I don't really do anything with oiling the chain other than changing the drip speed of the oil feed. I mean, after a wash I might turn it up for one ride and then turn it back down again, and sometimes I turn it off altogether. Just, you know, I just obviously check the chain, see what condition it's in terms of its oil, and then every now and again I will clean the chain completely and re-lube it, but that's few and far between in comparison to what I would have been doing if I didn't have the Scott oilers, so I thoroughly recommend those. I don't think there's much else I can say really, other than that I'm extremely pleased with it, thoroughly recommend it. It's a really great bike. Oh yeah, the only other thing is obviously it does have a handily placed 12 volt socket. You can't see it at the moment, it's down here, which you can attach a USB converter to, like a cigarette lighter USB converter, and get yourself a couple of USB sockets to power some devices. So I have that, but I also, to be honest, I added an aftermarket additional double USB power outlet, which is hidden down there. I'll show you that later on. For 2 more USB outlets, because obviously I've got 5 cameras on the bike, one of which is on my helmet, so 4 of the ones on the bike need to be powered. And the mobile phone, of course, which is running the Scenic navigation app, which I'm beta testing at the moment, which is going to be well, it already was probably one of the best motorbike navigation apps out there, but now it definitely will be. It's there were a few bugs with the previous version, and there were a few features missing, and nothing like that anymore. Hi. Yeah, just waiting for the train to cross here. KTM 690. Looks like an advert for KTM. With regards to the cameras and stuff, I will be doing another video later on, just about camera mounting positions, powering options, vibration issues and sound, but that's all part of motor vlogging videos that I also will be making as part of the channel, but separate to this, which is really looking at the bike. Oh, it's one other thing it's probably just an idiosyncrasy of myself, to be honest, but I do find sometimes when I'm cancelling the indicators that my front finger here inadvertently touches this red lever, which is the head beam, and I turn the head beam on accidentally. But that's probably me just being an old duffer. A lot of bikes out today because it's a Sunday. To be honest, I don't normally ride on a Sunday. I have the luxury of being able to ride all week, and it's much quieter. So that's what I normally do. But we've got a little tour planned tomorrow. My wife and I want to watch MotoGP this afternoon because it's the British Silverstone first one since they resurfaced the track. So keen to watch that. So I didn't have time to do this in a weekday, so I've done it on a weekend. This is the Koppen Pass, which is a beautiful little kind of zigzaggy, snaking road through the trees just above Hallstatt at one end, and connects really Obertran, which is at the far end of Hallstatt. It connects that to Bad Aussee, which is where we joined it. Geographical centre of Austria. So there's a little place coming up in a bit on the other side of the road. I'm going to stop and just show you a few things like the extra USB sockets I put on the bike, and the Scott oiler and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, the other thing I completely forgot to mention was how slick the gearbox is on this thing. It's got the best, it doesn't have a quick shifter, and going up through the box, once you get past second, you don't need it. You just put a little bit of upward pressure on the gear pedal and just roll off slightly on the throttle and click, it's in. Very nice. So you don't need a quick shifter for going up through the box. Obviously going down is a different thing, but none of the other bikes I've tried have been as smooth on the gear change as this one. Don't get any false neutrals or anything like that. Plus you can start the bike. Some of the bikes I've had, you can't start them if you stall them unless you get the bike back into neutral. Just going to stop over here for a second. A lot of people here though, so I probably won't do this talk to video here. Yeah, in a lot of cases you can't restart the bike if you're in gear, and when you're on one of these bikes where finding neutral is an absolute bastard, it can be rather embarrassing, if not dangerous. I mean, I've had a situation. What was I riding? I was riding an NC 700, I think, in the Canary Islands, and stalled the thing quite soon after going out from the dealer. Not really got used to it. And normally I just pull the clutch on this and start it again, job done. But that doesn't work, so you then have to try and find neutral, and gosh, finding neutral was a real pain, so I ended up having to paddle the bike over to the side of the road and then spend what seemed like an eternity, it probably wasn't very long, but trying to find neutral before I could start the bike again. Real pain. So I don't know if that's common on bikes, that some of them you can't start unless you're in neutral. I know this one's unusual in that even if you are in neutral you can't start it if you don't pull the clutch. So this one has that pull the clutch start philosophy, which I think is good. So yeah, that wasn't a very suitable space to stop to show you some of these little additions before I sign off on this video. I'll try and find somewhere down here once we get to the bottom. Probably stop over here. Okay, so here we are parked up.
First of all, I'm going to show you the extra USB stuff. So I've got one of these plug-in ones here that you can just basically get a cigarette lighter type thing, plugs into the stock, the one that's provided with the bike here. And then down here, if you can see that, let's have a look down here, see if I can get that to focus. Yeah, down here I've fitted another one. It's also got 2 points. This goes through a fuse and back to the battery under the seat. Right, so the accessory bar on the front, I've basically made a stainless steel bar here that just simply clamps onto the bottom setting of the slidable screen. I don't tend to slide the screen up and down, so this doesn't compromise me. I'm never going to want to use the bottom position. It's always on the top. But still, it would be nice if Triumph and other bike manufacturers put a bar, something like this, in a suitable place to mount things like this. This is like a standard one of these X-grip things for the phone, and then I've got one of my power leads coming in here to power that continuously. So that's one little modification. I added in the crash bars there, but I bought those with the bike, so they were added by Triumph when I bought the bike. And now we come round to the running lights. So these are actually third-party running lights that I've installed. Basically took off the original spotlights that were in that position, but as I said, they don't give a wide angle enough view. And here's the fitting point for the front camera, and you can see this is really quite rigid here, and because you don't get much vibration in any of the rev range, you get very, very smooth results. What else? We've got Scott Oiler. Scott Oiler is fitted here. It's one of these electronic ones. Basically, it feeds oil down through here, and I've fed it in through the swing arm, and then it comes out on the other side by the chain. Let's have a look. It comes out down here. You can just see this nozzle down here, this nozzle here, and dripping oil on to the chain, and you can change the frequency at which it drops.
So that was my user's 18-month impression of the Triumph Tiger 800 XRT. Please do take a look at my other videos, my touring videos, and my great motorcycle road series, and if you like those, and you'll see obviously all the cameras that I mentioned on this video being used in anger on those videos. If you like those, please hit subscribe, and don't forget to hit the bell button to be notified when I release new videos, which are coming out all the time. Thanks guys, bye.